like you said, get a few yards here and there, but you're not gonna see him bust those runs unless there's a huge hole. But I mean, I remember it was rookie year. I'm sitting there watching him. It's like, come on, your first round draft pick. He's gotten better. I think when they switched his own block, and that helped him a lot. But I mean, I say, just keep him. I mean, they're going to keep him. Sean is going to stick with him. I think we're going to. We're going to find a lot more. He'll get his touches in San Francisco. It won't be as much as he usually gets, but they'll ease him back in. And the trade talk. No, nothing. I don't see the value. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're going to get for Ingram. Fifth round pick maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking fourth, fifth that'd be the highest of the high. And he's a first rounder, was when he got drafted. And what are you really going to get for that fourth or fifth rounder in a year? Not even now. It's like, 8 months away before the draft? 7 months?
Exactly.
Well, I think with me, the biggest one, and I know specifically one person upset with my comments on this, was the Sheldon Richardson one. Not that Sheldon Richardson's a bad player. I mean, the New York Jets have 3 very good defensive linemen. But I think that's the thing that you need to hear and note first. And this goes back to what Brian was saying, just a lack of knowledge about the fans. They get caught up in names. Sheldon Richardson is a 3-4 defensive end. If, and this is a big if because not every player in the NFL can do this, if he could switch to a 4-3 defensive line, which is an entirely different technique system because he plays a 2-gap system in New York, he'd play a 1-gap system here. It's very different. If you take a 3-4 defensive end, they're usually going to translate to 2 positions, if any. And that's a 6-7 technique defensive end, which is what you have Cameron Jordan, a Pro Bowl level player, playing, or a 3-tech, which is a slightly smaller defensive tackle who can rush the passer up the middle. And you have Nick Fairley, who is playing, to me, as good as any 3-tech in the NFL, with the exception of a couple of names, playing a very high-quality starter level. And then you've got a first-round draft pick named Sheldon Rankins, who's about to come back. So to me, that was 3 players you have sitting in front of what would have cost you probably, a second-round pick or a player, maybe even a first-round pick to pick up a guy like Richardson. So that trade just made no sense to me. But it wasn't just bloggers. I mean, there was legitimate – I say legitimate. We bloggers try to, put a name for ourselves, and we do more research on a lot of quote-unquote legitimate resources. But some big-name media sources, I'll say it that way, putting that out there as potential Saints bait. And to me, in just terms of studying the film in game of football, made no sense to even propose that trade, let alone say, and I saw some Saints fans say, well, why don't we just send Bird and Ingram to the Jets for that? Because, they could use a safety and they could use a running back. I mean, it just doesn't add up. And I think that's why it frustrates me is, it's like we're just throwing names out there, like Brian was saying, on name recognition only, hoping something sticks. Like, when you're testing spaghetti to see if it's done and you throw it against the wall, that's what we're doing with NFL players, hoping that they fix this, abysmal defense.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I was up next.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Either one of y'all.
I mean, it basically comes down to that. I don't believe Sheldon Richardson would fit well here, and there's a big reason why it is not. It has nothing to do with his talent. Can he make the transition? It's possible. So I won't totally rule out that he can't make it. And I do believe that the Saints have kind of transitioned their idea in what they want to become and what they are going to become. I think at one point Sean Payton did want to be the Seattle Seahawks as far as defensively. I think he's changed that a bit. I think he now wants to be more like the Los Angeles Rams because he's running a system very similar to the system that the St. Louis Rams ran. That's why you brought in a James Laurinaitis, because he's trying to rerun Greg Williams' system without Greg Williams. So Dennis Allen is his version of Greg Williams. I guess he'd be Greg Williams 2.0, a younger, smarter version of Greg Williams without all of the ignorance and the conflict that goes along with it. Dennis Allen was a part of Greg Williams' staff as a secondaries coach. However, all of that being said, the idea of Sheldon Richardson would basically give the Saints the Aaron Donald, who's the other guy that they have over there along with Aaron Donald over there on the defensive line. I can't recall.
Mo Wilkerson.
Right No, not over in LA right now.
Oh,
the
LA.
Rams
I'm
defense.
sorry.
Yeah, it's Aaron Donaldson. I want to say at one time it was Chris Long, but they have a really very formidable rotation of defensive tackles. That is exactly what you're talking about. Those 3 tank defensive tackles that get after the quarterback, and they put all kinds of pressure and havoc on it for whatever, I'll go by memory, they're facing right now. But the idea of it is, could Sheldon Richardson make the transition? Absolutely possible. The problem with that is that Sheldon Richardson, although 25 years old, is in a contract year. Of course he's going to put up great numbers for the Saints if he gets into the rotation, because the Saints don't really have anybody else that can compete with his talent level. The problem is the Saints can't pay him next year. So if you give up a first or second rounder, you're basically getting a rental player, and you're not guaranteed a playoff position just because you get him. And that will be the gamble involved in it. Of course, Sheldon Richardson's name sounds nice. His talent is there. But when you have to pay Sheldon Richardson and you've already given up a first or second round pick to get him, well, now you're just doubling up on a bad idea. Especially if you can't re-sign him. I don't like that chance. And you have Kenny Vaccaro coming up for a contract very soon. You're definitely, going to be in a situation to where you're going to have to do something with the money that you have. But just because you have a lot of money does not mean you have to spend a lot of money. And if you are going to spend it, you better make sure you get it right, because you've already doubled down on middle linebacker, which you need now, because you don't have, between the 2 guys you thought were your middle linebacker, you don't have one. And you still have to solve your outside linebacker problem, because if Craig Robertson is going to play the middle for you, you still need somebody to play on the outside, and Ellaby has proven he cannot be reliable.
Yeah, well, he can't be healthy.
Well, that would be why he can't be reliable.
When he's on the field, he's very reliable.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. But that's the problem. See, the whole problem with Ellaby is not his talent level when he's healthy. It's the fact that he's he's rarely healthy. When Ellaby plays, the Saints are like 4-2, maybe 5-1, something in that nature.
1-0 this year.
5-2. So, it's amazing what happened when he's on the field. The problem is that even though he was on the field a limited snaps, he tweaked the hamstring. So it's like he couldn't even finish the game that he came back to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a consistent problem with him. So you can't count on a guy, because I've always been told in NFL circles and maybe even sports in general, the best ability is availability, and that's what Ellaby doesn't have.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, there's really no argument for that. Maybe Patrick has got some inside news we don't know of, and the Saints have been secretly holding Ellaby out so he'll be healthy through the playoffs. Is that the case, Patrick?
No, he's a China doll. Like you said, he came up, with the hamstring thing and this, and it's one thing after another. Some players are like that. They're always getting dinged. Where body types are different. He just seems like a type. Like you said, on the field, yeah, he makes a difference when he's healthy. And we've seen, he had his health problems in Miami. He was on IR there too, so it's not just here.
Yeah.
He really had that one good year in Baltimore, the Super Bowl year, and he turned that into that big contract with Miami. And then they changed their scheme, and then he couldn't stay healthy, and we had got him. What was that? What was that part of this? Was it the Stills trade or something like that? And, how he got out. Anyway,
yeah, it was when we sent Kenny Stills down to Miami.
Yeah, and it's just it's not just this year's last year, the year before. It's on and on and on. So it's not just bad luck. To me, it seems physically. You hate to say at his age that body breaking down, but you have all these injuries piling up, and once you think you're healthy, you get hurt again immediately. So
yeah.
I hate to say it to any professional athlete that's a living, but we've seen it. It's a pattern.
Yeah, I wish Ellaby was healthy, but as you said, you talked about 1 year in Baltimore. That's also the same reason that we picked up another guy for us cheaper than he was, say, a year or two ago, but another guy who is not able to really fill in that non-tech defensive end role, Paul Kruger. He has moments where he comes in and, gets some pressure on the passer. He could definitely do a rotational role on the defensive line, but he really made his whole name that one season with Baltimore. And, I mean, him and Ellerby are both examples of not necessarily bad players, but players who aren't designed to play 16 games and 70 defensive snaps every game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and, the defensively, like you said, outside linebackers are needs, and you need somebody opposite Cam Jordan. And Kruger, when they got him, to me, it was a stopgap measure. That wasn't their future. I think they know that, but, he's average. He'll flash here and there, but, he's not going to be that guy, that guy, a game-changing guy. And the Saints desperately need that at defensive end. They haven't had that in a long time. Maybe since Will Smith was in his prime.
Well, the best defensive end combo they had in a while would be the Gillette and Jordan combo, but finding a defensive end that can do everything, you probably have to go back to the Grant and Darren Howard days in their prime to really have where we had two starter quality, potential Pro Bowl quality defensive ends.
It shows, they were able to get constant pressure. You don't have it, and and it hurts. On the back end, those guys are out there. Even totally healthy. With a Bro or PJ Williams back there, it's still tough for them. When that quarterback is just sitting there, all day, and I'm jealous. Not so much this year, but in the past few years, where our quarterbacks are running for his freaking life. And we can't get any pressure. But I guess that's why defensive ends are expensive, because they're hard to get, the quality ones.
Yeah, they definitely don't grow on trees. It's kind of like that whole offensively, we seem to find players out of nowhere, like the Willie Sneads and the Chris Ivorys and the great comeback story of Tim Hightower. But defensively, man, we can't find anybody. We haven't – when's the last, surprise defensive end that we had that just amazed everybody? The surprise linebacker, even the surprise corner, with Bro being the only exception in quite some time. So, we just haven't had that same look on defense that we've had on offense in terms of finding players.
Yeah, you'd have to go, all the way back to, the Super Bowl run when they had the magic with, and with Jabari Greer and Sharper back there, you get those free agents that actually came in and made a huge difference. We haven't seen that in a long time. Long time.
Yeah, well, let me get this from you, because we're a little bit past 8, and I think we need to talk about it, because last week me and Brian let time run on us, and we really didn't get into the Seattle game, which I guess needs – I don't know, maybe we should turn that into tradition. We don't talk about the upcoming game and we win. But what about you and these 49ers? I know their run game is one of the few things on offense they can still do decently well. Colin Kaepernick starting, and he seems to be throwing at 50% or below, for the most part. So not a lot of aerial attack. But, I think the big question for us is, can our offense score on the road, or are we going to struggle like we did in Kansas City and New York? How do you see the game kind of playing out for us?
Brian, you want to take it?
Yeah, I'll give a crack at this. I kind of put a little joke on Twitter earlier today that, Sean Payton recently came out and said that the NFL officials need to be made full-time and get a pay raise, because he finds it ridiculous that the NFL is the only league that doesn't have full-time officials. Well, of course, Sean Payton and the Saints have had their fair share of bad calls go against them, which is mainly the reason why he did so. But you've got to know that the officials have loved Sean Payton, one of the most prominent coaches and the highest paid NFL coach, coming out and saying that. So I put a joke out on Twitter saying that the Saints are going to get every call this week, and the 49ers are basically just going to get steamrolled because of it. So, in every joke, there's a hint of truth. And I do think the Saints this week, they've kind of starting to find their groove a little bit. Over the past 2 weeks, the defense has been playing much improved.
Yeah.
That they're not giving up a lot of points. And if you take away the offensive miscues, the Saints defense is among the better defenses in the league over the past 2 weeks, and they're getting healthier. and maybe they're starting to understand the scheme a bit more. Guys are finally starting to settle in, and even if they're not healthy per se, the guys